was like, I'll let somebody else decorate it.
Yeah, exactly.
The riches of this world will fade. The treasures of our God remain. Here I empty myself to all this world, nothing, and find everything in you. The riches of this world will fade. The treasures of our God remain. Here I empty myself to all this world, nothing, and find everything in you. I surrender, I surrender, I surrender all to you. Take my life a sacrifice. In you alone I'm satisfied. Here I empty myself to all this world, nothing, and find everything in you. Oh, everything in you. I surrender, I surrender, I surrender all to you. I surrender, I surrender, I surrender all to you. Not my will, but yours be done. Not my strength, but yours alone. Nothing else but you, oh Lord. I find everything in you. I surrender, I surrender, I surrender all to you. I surrender, I surrender, I surrender all to you.
Good morning. Jesus said, I am the light of the world, and where 2 or 3 of you are gathered in my name, there too I am with you. And so may the light of Christ illumine all of our lives to share the gospel in the world. Well, good morning and welcome to our service of worship this morning. It is great to see you here. And we strive here at Bethel to make this a place where you belong, where you feel loved. And so I do hope that today, as we come together as the family of God, you will feel God's Spirit be with you. Lots of things are beginning to happen, and we encourage you to continue to be well and feel well, and to continue to look after others as well. If you feel comfortable wearing a mask, please do so, and we just want to encourage to keep us on a healthy track through this winter that is coming. So as we gather in different places, we're going to have a potluck this Wednesday at 12:30. We invite you to come along. All the women in the church are going to gather. This is our first gathering in almost 3 years to be together. And I know many are looking forward to that. Some folks from Burford are going to join us, and I think a couple from St. Paul's. So we look forward to being together. I hope you can join us for that. And we continue our outreach. One of the ways in which we are the church in the world is to help others who are in need. And our collection for Margot's Place continues throughout the month of November. So thank you in advance for your support of that. Also, a couple of weeks ago, I reached out to some of our families with children in the church to see what sort of things they might like to see happen again. And out of that has evolved a family night, which is amazing how things just seem to happen. So next Sunday evening at 4:30, we're going to gather with some food, pizza and vegetables, and some treats, and just have a wonderful time together. Everyone is welcome to join us. So if you have a favorite board game, you can bring that. And it's just a time to kind of reconnect after a long period of being apart. So I hope if you're free, you might come out and join us for that. And we're just kind of going with the flow. We don't know how many are going to be there, so we'll figure out pizza when everyone gets there. So that's we're just kind of keeping it informal and relaxed for the evening. And our Christmas dinner is coming up as well, and Petra still has tickets for that. I have tickets as well, and so you can see Petra after church or myself, and we can get you set up with that. Invite a friend along. It's going to be a great evening. And as I mentioned last week, our surprise guest, which we were still working on, has now been confirmed, and Nora Footen had called me up to see whether or not we would like her choir to come and sing. So St. George Pro Musica Choir will be joining our wonderful, talented worship team here for that evening and sharing some of their music for the season. So another delight to look forward to. Are there any other announcements? I think today we'll do birthdays. Are there November birthdays? We need some cheering up today with the snow. Mary, happy birthday. Nancy, happy birthday, November babies. Anybody else? How about anniversaries? Not too many weddings in November, right, Ian? We don't have many bookings for at the hall for weddings in November. Okay, well, let's sing happy birthday to those folks who are born in November.
Scotty?
You're not going to play? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear friends. Happy birthday to you. Thank the Lord for you. Thank the Lord for you. Thank the Lord, thank the Lord. Thank the Lord for you.
Well, we find ourselves in this world today in the midst of a lot of change. But one thing that does not change is that God's love remains steadfast and sure. God is always creating something new, a new heaven and a new earth, and each day offers newness of hope and faith on this path we call life. In our time of worship today, I invite us to open our hearts and spirits to God's creative word for us this day, that we may learn and grow as a people of God, and to witness to God's love and power in the world. Let us worship God.
And on this path, the gates of holiness are open wide. And on this path, the gates of holiness are open wide. And on this path, the gates of holiness are open wide. Open wide, open wide, open wide. The gates are open wide. So enter in. The gates of holiness are open wide. So enter in. The gates of holiness are open wide. So enter in. The gates of holiness are open wide. Open wide, open wide, open wide. The gates are open wide.
Let us pray. God of creation and compassion, on this path of life, you hear the cries of your people. You know our fears and our despair. But in your great love, you assure us that you walk with us in Christ Jesus. So in this time of worship, we long to see your new heaven and new earth break through, making your justice known and life fruitful for all your children. We praise you this day for the hope you offer us in Jesus Christ. And we trust that you are at work in your church and in creation so that all that is broken will be made new. Holy God, through our prayers and our praise this day, strengthen our trust in your promised future in Jesus' name. Amen. You may be seated. Our first lesson this morning is taken from the prophet Isaiah, reading from the 65th chapter. And this offers us a vision of the world in which God is still at work, a vision of the peaceable kingdom. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered or come to mind. But be glad and rejoice forever in what I'm creating, for I am about to create Jerusalem as a joy and its people as a delight. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and delight in my people. No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in it, or the cry of distress. No more shall there be in it an infant who lives but only a few days, or an old person who does not live out a lifetime. For one who dies at 100 years will be considered a youth, and one who falls short of 100 will be considered accursed. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and eat their fruit. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For like the days of a tree shall the days of my people be, and my chosen shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain or bear children for calamity, for they shall be offspring blessed by the Lord, and their descendants as well. Before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together. The lion shall eat straw like the ox, but the serpent, its food, shall be dust. They shall not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, says the Lord. For these words of challenge and of hope we give thanks and praise to God, and may they enable us to lead lives that embody both challenge and hope, bound together by God's love and light. Amen.
We are marching in the light of God. 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 We are marching, marching, oh, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, marching, oh, we are marching in the light of God. 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 We are marching, marching, ooh, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, marching, ooh, we are marching in the light of God.
Our gospel reading today is taken from Luke 21, and this reading is very much in contrast to the reading from the prophet Isaiah I just shared with you. This passage, I just want to say a few things before we enter into listening to God's word for us in this way. The passage is known as an apocalyptic passage, which means describing or prophesying the end of the world or the return of Christ. And we do often read them as though they are predictions about the end of times or when Jesus will return. But I think it's interesting to note that this is not how the passage would have been read or written for the people in the early church. These passages were offered to the early church to help them understand and to believe that while they were struggling from oppression or persecution, that this would put their struggles in the larger context of God's universal struggle between God and the forces of evil in the world. And so this particular reading that we're going to share this morning was written basically about the destruction of the temple, which was the center where people believed that's where God existed and nowhere else. And so this was indeed the temple that was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. And so this is Jesus' prediction of that happening, but it's his encouragement to the people who were following him to say that even when these things happen, I will still be with you. So I invite you to hear that as we read these words for us this day, so many thousands of years later. The promise still remains true. Some of his disciples were remarking about how the temple was adorned with beautiful stones and with gifts dedicated to God.
Isn't this the most beautiful church you've ever seen?
Yes, we definitely have the nicest one in Brant County.
We dedicated it to God, and God certainly has blessed us.
I'm sure the others in town would love to have what we've got.
But Jesus said, as for what you see here, the time will come when not one stone will be left on another, and every one of them will be thrown down.
Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. Hallelujah, hallelujah, we are going to see the King.
They asked Jesus,
Teacher, when will these things happen?
And what will be the sign that they are about to take place?
He replied, watch out that you are not deceived, for many will come in my name claiming,
I am the one.
The time is near.
Follow me.
Listen to me.
But Jesus said, do not follow them.
No more lying there. We are going to see the King. No more lying there. We are going to see the King. No more lying there. We are going to see the King. Hallelujah, hallelujah. We are going to see the King.
Jesus said, when you hear of wars and revolutions,
The war in Ukraine reached a new intensity today as missiles landed.
The residents of the city continue to live in fear. Police have been unable to withstand rioters and looters.
Jesus said, do not be frightened. These things must happen first, but the end will not come right away. Then he said to them, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom.
Military exercises continued today in foreign waters. Response was swift.
Planes carried out a surprise bombing attack before the daybreak today.
Jesus said there will be great earthquakes.
More than 100,000 people lost their lives in a devastating earthquake. Authorities say the quake measured 8.1 on the Richter scale.
Sickness.
These viruses continue to spread in our community. Health authorities claim they are in epidemic proportions and no signs of letting up.
Famines in various places.
2 more shipments of food reached port, but never made it to the starving masses. The warlords continue to control.
Jesus said fearful events and great signs will come from heaven.
Scientists claim 2 asteroids are on a collision course.
How much science fiction can become actual reality?
No more crying there, we are going to see the King. No more crying there, we are going to see the King. No more crying there, we are going to see the King. Hallelujah, hallelujah, we are going to see the King.
Jesus said, "But before all of this, they will lay hands on you and persecute you."
You're under arrest.
Take that.
No video cameras here, so let's give them a good thumping.
Teach them a lesson.
Jesus said they will deliver you to synagogues.
Don't you know that the stories about Jesus aren't really true?
If your Christianity really worked, you wouldn't be suffering like this.
And put you in jail.
We'll put you away for good.
And you will be brought before kings and governors, and all on account of my name.
Why do you believe when it is against the law?
You're going against the very things your country stands for, you traitor.
No more dying there, we are going to see the King. No more dying there, we are going to see the King. No more dying there, we are going to see the King. Hallelujah, hallelujah, we are going to see the King.
But this will result in your being witnesses to them. But make up your mind not to worry beforehand how you will defend yourselves. For I will give you words and wisdom that none of your adversaries will be able to resist or contradict.
Well, actually, you make a lot of sense.
I think I'll have to think about this. You have a point.
You will be betrayed even by parents or brothers, relatives, and friends.
Come on, I'm your mother. After all I've done for you, how can you waste your life following Jesus?
I've been your best friend since kindergarten. You're too smart for all this. You've been brainwashed.
And they will put some of you to death, and all people will hate you because of me.
I'll never speak to you again.
You must be out of your mind.
You are not worthy to be my friend.
You'll never fit in here. You don't belong.
But Jesus said, "Not a hair on your head will perish. By standing firm, you will gain life." Let's pray. Oh God, we are more like the vision in Luke than the vision of Isaiah. We see wars and hatred and violence everywhere, yet despair of ever stopping them. We see oppression and injustice and persecution, but fail to raise our voices in prophetic protest. We have become a pessimistic people. So we pray that you help us believe, really believe in Isaiah's vision of the peaceable kingdom, in your promise of a new heaven and a new earth. Lord God, on this path we are called to walk. Let your cry be our cry. Let your vision be our vision. In Jesus' name, amen. Friends, people are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you are successful, you will win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. The biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest men and women with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. People favor underdogs, but follow only top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People really need help but may attack you if you do help them. Help people anyway. Give the world the best you have, and you might get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best you have anyway.
Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. Hallelujah, hallelujah, we are going to see the King.
Let us pray. O Lord, may my words come from you. May they fall upon open hearts and open minds and open lives ready to connect with your gospel. In Jesus' name, amen. So I want to begin by just repeating a few lines of the prayer that I just prayed a few moments ago. We see wars, hatred, and violence everywhere, yet despair of ever stopping them. We see oppression and injustice and persecution, but fail to raise our voices in prophetic protest. We have become a pessimistic people. I think this is the generation of being easily distracted. And we have forgotten the joy. The joy and the hope of our faith we find in that which Jesus Christ offers us. And so this morning, after that heavy, I admit, reading, I want to invite us back into the joy, because sometimes we need to hear the lament before we can experience the joy. So I'm going to do something a little bit unorthodox. Some of you know that I often do that, especially if you live with me. And you might think, oh my goodness, she's lost her mind. This is not the time for this, but it is, I believe. I'm going to invite you to sing with me, Joy to the World. And so let's just sing it. People have their Christmas tree up? No one here. We don't either, but I have seen pictures on Facebook of people who do. But did you know, and I'm not preparing you for Christmas by singing that, although it might get you in the mood a little bit, did you know that that song was not originally written as a Christmas carol? In fact, it was part of the hymn writer Isaac Watts' attempt to translate, to set to new music, the Psalms for Christian worship. And this hymn came out of and based on the second half of Psalm 98, which reads this: "Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Break forth into joyous song and sing praises. Let the sea roar and all that fills it, the world and those who live in it. Let the floods clap their hands. Let the hills sing together for joy at the presence of the Lord, for he is coming to judge the earth, and he will judge the world with righteousness and the peoples with equity." And moreover, Watts did not write joy to the world to celebrate Jesus' birth, but rather to speak to his second coming, which keeps in line with the text we just read from the Gospel of Luke, that apocalyptic nature of writing. But I hope the words from one of these favorite Christmas carols can help us this morning just a little bit refocus and reframe the promise that we hear in Luke's passage, moving us to find hope through such turbulent and changing times that we are indeed experiencing in the world today. Because I don't know about you, but lately I've been feeling a little bit down over all the doom and gloom and restlessness that we are seeing in the world and in the relationships between brother and sister and humankind. We see the rising cost of pretty much everything. 4 oranges cost our family, I think it was $7 this week. 4 oranges. The growing divide between the rich and the poor, government policies being used as coercion. And since the onset of the pandemic, many people have lost their ability to communicate and to look their neighbor in the eye. Because we seem to be approaching people and situations with more suspicion and fear than faith. And you see that, in essence, that's what Jesus is warning his followers about in the passage for today. He lists all sorts of things that will happen to challenge their faith, things that will bring hurt and suffering. But in the midst of all of that happening, he also says these things. We tend to miss them in the passage. "Watch out that you are not deceived, but do not be frightened." And the Message version translates this as, "Keep your head and don't panic. Make up your mind not to worry, because I will give you words and wisdom." And he ends the passage by saying, "Stand firm. Every detail of your body and soul is in my care. Even the hairs on your head is in my care." And I think it's so easy to become distracted and disoriented and dismayed by all that is wrong in the world, and there is a lot, that we lose sight of the good and the gracious and the godly things that are still there. We lose sight of the power of Christ at work in the world. Isaiah's prophecy of a new heaven and a new earth and Isaac Watts' joy to the world hymn remind us that God is indeed still active in the world now, and there is evidence of God's majesty and goodness all around us. But too often we approach the challenges and changes and catastrophes with fear, despair, and disappointment, and we wonder if anything could ever change. But the prophet Isaiah holds up for us and for all God's people a vision of God's world that is transformed in every respect. A world in which God is working to bring about a new heaven and a new earth, where joy is the hallmark of life. Isaac Watts says this: "Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns." There will be a time when no one will have life tragically cut off before their time. Farmers and builders will be able to work without fear of war or famine destroying the fruits of their labor. Mothers will never need to fear the lives of their children. This vision of a new heaven and a new earth does not rule out death, only untimely death. And it's not a simple return to the Garden of Eden before the fall. It suggests that God chooses to transform the world through history. What has been and what has happened will definitely have an impact upon the shape of things to come. But the good news is that God knows where healing and restoration is needed and provides us with the strength we need to participate in the transformation that is to come if we are but only ready and willing. Let every heart prepare him room. For God is indeed at work to bring about that new kingdom and heaven and earth, to build a better world through our actions and choices of our very lives. In light of recent contract negotiations in our province, I was reminded about the story of J.S. Woodsworth. Woodsworth was a pastor in the Methodist Church, and he lived during the last part of the early part of the last century. And at the turn of the century, you might remember the stories about the difficulties in the city of Winnipeg. It was a time in Canada where workers had no vacation, few holidays, and worked more than 12 hours a day and 6 days a week, and for very little pay. And so this brought about the Winnipeg General Strike. And there was much labor turmoil during that time and rioting. And amid all of this was J.S. Woodsworth, a Methodist pastor. He was working for the cause of underpaid workers. And at that time, he was working as the editor of a newspaper. And amid all of the labor struggle, he wrote an article in which he said that work should offer enough pay to support a home, enough pay to put food on the table, and much more. One of the papers came out and was read by government leaders in Winnipeg, and he was arrested for his radical views. But while he was in jail, another issue of his paper came out with the headline, "Editor Arrested for Quoting the Prophet Isaiah." And that is what his editorial in the paper was. It was a paraphrase of Isaiah's passage I shared with you this morning. A vision of a better world. And J.S. Woodsworth was someone who believed in that vision. Yet in sharing his view on how that vision should be fulfilled, he was arrested and persecuted. Yet he continued after that time throughout his life to fulfill the call that he felt on his life, to seek a just and peaceful world. And he was instrumental in laying the foundation for many of the social programs that we enjoy today, from social assistance to pensions to Medicare. And on his tombstone it reads, "There is still time to build a better world." But if others do not see the joy of our faith, the hope we have in that vision, the love that comes out of our words and actions, how will suffering and prejudice and indifference ever be moved to build a better world so people can see the King? A world in which the way of empire and the values of greed and selfishness and privilege are transformed into a beautiful mountain, as Isaiah says, where there is enough and equal share for everyone, and offers us the image of a wolf and a lamb, enemies, feeding together. It begins with you and me, in small and simple acts of faith that overcome and outshine the fears, the doubts, the hurts, and the injustices of the world. And you might be saying, well, what does that look like lived out today? I go back to one of my favorite authors, Frederick Buechner, in his sermon Message in the Stars. And this is what he says about that. Brothers and sisters, do not weary in doing what is right. God speaks to us about ourselves, about what God wants us to do and what God wants us to become. And this is the area where I believe we know so much more about God than we admit even to ourselves, where people hear God speak even if they do not believe in God. A face comes towards us down the street. Do we raise our eyes or do we keep them lowered, passing by in silence? Somebody says something about somebody else, and what he says happens to be not only cruel but also funny, and everybody laughs. Do we laugh too, or do we speak the truth in love? When a friend has hurt us, do we take pleasure in hating him because hate has its pleasures as well as love? Or do we try to build back some flimsy little bridge? Sometimes when we are alone, thoughts come swarming into our heads like bees, some of them destructive and ugly and self-defeating thoughts, some of them creative and glad. Which thoughts do we choose to think then, as much as we have the choice? Will we be brave today? Not in some big way, probably, but in some little foolish way, yet brave still. Will we be honest today, or will we be a liar? Just some little pint-sized honesty, but honest still. Will we be a friend or cold as ice today? All the observed little meetings, decisions, inner skirmishes that go to make up our days, it all adds up to very little, and yet it all adds up to very much. Our days are full of nonsense, and yet not, because it is precisely into the nonsense of our days that God speaks for us great words of significance. Not words that are written in the stars, but words that are written into the raw stuff and nonsense of our days, which are not nonsense just because God speaks into them. And the words that he says to teach us differently are this: be brave, be merciful, feed my lambs, and press on towards the goal. And so I know it's sometimes easy to get down and to get mired in all the doom and gloom of our own personal lives as well as that of the world. But every change and choice that we make for the good, in faith and with joy, that is made for the betterment of humankind, to be a part of God building this new heaven on earth, starts with one simple act. We cannot do great things, but we can do small things with great love, says Mother Teresa. Reminded me the story about this bridge. Who would walk it? Who would cross it? I'm not sure I would. It's 100 feet above the Apurimac River near the remote village of Hunchiru, Peru. It's a suspension bridge that connects two roads, and it's been there since, if you can believe it, the 14th century. Using 4 miles of braided coya grass, the Inca constructed the bridge in phases. Now, you might think, how? First, a bowman attached a fine thread to an arrow and fired it across the gorge. And a man on the other side tied a cord to the thread and fired it back again across the gorge. And the cord then was pulled across, and one by one, the Inca added thicker and thicker ropes, finally hauling into place a 200-pound floor cable that was created off-site. Amazing. It's made of grass. This is the last remaining Inca rope bridge. And it's reconstructed every June and continues to serve access across the gorge. but it began with a single thread. Think of how many changes could take place in life, and how many have, because of a single phone call. The implementation of one idea, one visit, one single letter. All great bridges stem from tiny beginnings. Think of J.S. Wordsworth. Jesus did not promise to protect us from the pain of living in such difficult times, but what Jesus did promise was that we would be empowered by God's Spirit to stay faithful and to witness to the world about the way of Jesus and the new life and possibility it can bring. I will give you words of wisdom, so stand firm, Jesus says. Every detail of your body and soul is in my care. So, my friends, in the midst of a world of suffering and violence, our best witness to our faith is to reject selfishness and think of others, to reject despair and continue to hope, to reject violence and to work for peace, and to reject division and hatred in favor of love. These Christ-like attitudes and actions do not require dramatic effects. They are expressed in the simple routines and choices of our lives, and may begin with one single thread. I have to leave you today with one of my favorite quotes of a man who walked in the footsteps of J.S. Wordsworth himself, Bonhomme Jack. And he said this: "My friends, love is better than anger. Hope is better than fear. Optimism is better than despair. So let us be loving and hopeful and optimistic, and we will change the world." Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. And let every heart prepare him room. And then heaven and nature will sing.
You value each of us the same. So to this broken world you came, to change a heart, to change a name, to bring your love. You walked as one of us to save. You wept with friends beside the grave. You felt the lash, yet you forgave, to show your love. So many killed by hate and fear, call from the ground to help us hear the raging witness that may clear the path to love. In you the nameless dead are found. To you our angry voices sound. Speak from the sky, speak from the ground. Move us to love. You value each of us the same. So you endured the cross of shame, to give to all your holy name, the name of love. O God of love, once again. Begin to build on earth your reign of love.
As followers of Jesus, we are called to offer visions of hope, words of comfort, acts of love, and our own resources to help bring God's new heaven and new earth. As we share our gifts this morning, let us pray God's blessing upon all of our offerings. Let us pray. Oh God, we long to make a difference in our world, and so we offer you what we have, our visions and dreams, our witness to your saving acts of love and justice, our resources to help bring the new heaven and the new earth into our midst. We offer you our very lives that we may be co-workers with you to bring about true and lasting change in our world and for the world you created. In Jesus' name, amen. And as our offering is received, I invite us to sing together, "It Is Well With My Soul."
In our lives, and Father, how you brought us through. When deep were the wounds and dark was the night, the promise of your love you proved. Now every battle still to come, let this be our song. It is well, it is well with my soul, with my soul. It is well with my soul. Weeping may come, remain for a night, but joy will paint a morning sky. You're there in the fast, you're there in the feast, your faithfulness will always shine. Every battle still to come, let this be our song. It is well with my soul, with my soul. It is well with my soul. Trust your ways, trust your ways, trust your name, trust your name. It is well with my soul. You lead us through battle, you lead us through battle. You lead us to blessing, you lead us to blessing. You make us faithful, you make us faithful. In the land of our suffering, God. It is well with my soul. It is with my soul, with my soul. It is well with my soul. Trust your ways, trust your name, trust your name. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul.
Let's pray. God of our past and our future, God of healing and hope, we come before you with grateful hearts. trusting that you walk with us through all the times of our life. We give you thanks for all of the benefits we share in a nation with many resources and many opportunities. Yet we remember before you the many who do not have enough and cannot see their way forward. We remember before you those living with hunger and communities struggling with the impact of fire and storm and earthquake and famine. We pray for all those working to relieve suffering in so many precious lives. We pray for those who continually struggle with mental health issues. For the battle of the mind is often unseen and misunderstood. So we pray for those on a daily basis who struggle, that we may see and hear and listen and bring healing and hope to those. God of these present times, we give thanks that we live in a country of relative peace and good order, a place where injustices past and present become subjects of investigation. And so we pray for the work of healing and reconciliation, engaging Indigenous communities with other citizens in this land. Open our hearts in mutual understanding and provide opportunities for common enterprise. We pray for those who have come to Canada, fleeing violence and deprivation in their homelands. Provide comfort and support through the generosity of neighbors, and protect newcomers from misunderstanding and discrimination. Guide us to create a sense of home that all can share. And God of time beyond our imagining, we give you thanks for all we learn through scientific investigation that stretches us to reimagine your creation in its vast mystery and beauty. Thank you for increasing insight in medical science and the possibilities it adds to your gifts of healing and hope. We pray for those in our congregation who continue to struggle with health issues, both physical and mental. We remember Keith and Laverne and Fred. We pray for them that your strength and your healing may come upon them, that you may be with those who care for them and love them, offering patience and strength. We pray for all those who work in healthcare in this stressful time, for patients waiting for treatment, and for those whose conditions find no relief. Bless them all with your spirit of courage and comfort. Thank you for increasing insight in climate science and the awareness it gives about the impact of our lives on the well-being of the earth. Create better agreement and cooperation in our communities to protect the earth for future generations by the ways we can adapt our lifestyles now. Oh God, bless us all with your spirit of courage and commitment. And in this moment of silence, let us pause as we hold before you those who are on our personal hearts this day, who need to know that you are near and that we care for them too. Oh God, make us signs of hope and healing for every life we touch. For we are the followers of Jesus who dare to pray together the words he taught us, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Our final hymn this day is indeed a prayer. So let us sing it and pray it together as we sing for the healing of the nations.
For the
pride of status, race, or schooling, dogmas that obscure your plan. In our common quest for justice, may we hallow life's brief span. You, Creator God, have written your great name on humankind. For our growing in your likeness, bring the life of Christ to mind. That by our response and service, earth its destiny may find.
My friends, go forth into a world that needs new vision and new love. Bring the message of hope, of justice, and of peace to all you meet. Live the dream and make it reality. Celebrate endings and new beginnings, challenges and promises. Live the new creation, and may the blessing of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be with us now and remain with us always. And may we go in peace to love and serve the Lord. Amen.
May the peace of God, our Heavenly Father, and the grace of Christ, the risen Son, and the fellowship of God the Spirit, keep our hearts and minds within His love. May this peace which passes understanding, and this grace which makes us what we are, and this fellowship of His communion, make us one in spirit and in heart.
Please be seated.
In my wrestling and in my doubts, in my failures, you won't walk out. Your great love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. Whoa, you are the peace in my troubled sea. In my silence, you won't let go. In the questions, your truth will hold. Your great love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. Whoa, you are the peace in my troubled sea. My lighthouse, shining in the darkness, I will follow you. Oh, my lighthouse, I will trust the promise. You will carry me safe to shore, safe to shore, safe to shore, safe to shore. I won't fear what tomorrow brings. With each morning I'll rise and sing. My God's love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. Whoa, you are the peace in my troubled sea. My lighthouse, darkness. I won't follow